Hey guys, it's Mr. Valentin, and today we're going to look at how to inject emotions into our writing. And we're going to be using the book Patron Saints of Nothing, which is nominated for the 2019 National Book Award in Young Adult Lit, as our mentor text for the day. So, in Patron Saints of Nothing, we meet Jay, and Jay is dealing with the after effects of his cousin passing away suddenly. He was the same age as him, a high school senior, and he just gets this information that he died. And he's already lost connection with him. And there's kind of these questions circulating of why didn't I stay in contact with him? Why didn't I do more? So there's a lot of confusion that kind of settles around this. And soon thereafter, Jay decides he needs to embark on a journey to the Philippines to find out the truth and what actually happened to his cousin. So, what I love about the text is it often deals with emotions in seemingly much more real ways than highly kinetic, highly distraught emotions, where our emotions on the mood meter that are extreme are -5, +5, right? Like high anger, or -5, -5 with deep depression. Often our emotions are somewhere even in between, even when we are grieving or angry. And this book manages to capture that. So we're going to take a look at very early on in the book, page 10, a small passage in which he has just found out his cousin has died and he's having a conversation with his father. It begins. He takes off his glasses, this is his father, and rubs his eyes. Sometimes they do. So it was random, like a car accident or something. Dad puts his glasses back on but avoids looking at me. He says nothing for a few beats and then quietly, "What would it change if you knew?" I don't answer because I can't. Doesn't the truth itself matter? I should be crying or throwing my controller down in anguish, but I don't do any of this. Instead, there's only a mild confusion, a muddy feeling of unreality that thickens when I consider the distance that had developed between Jun and me. How do you mourn someone you already let slip away? Are you even allowed to? Since I don't know, I mirror the disturbing calm of my father, as I always do. We share the space, the silence, but on the inside, I'm a plane with a failing engines. He's gone, Dad repeats after some time. That's it. And then a nervous laugh escapes his lips. I try to process the information. Jun is dead. His life has ended. And here I am, sitting in my living room on the other side of the world, a can of Coke on the coffee table, playing a video game on an enormous wall-mounted flat-screen TV, college on the docket. Dad wanders away. "Wait," I call after him. "Can we get there in time for the funeral?" He stops, over his shoulder. There won't be one. Jay's cousin dies, and there's no understanding of like what actually happened to him. And there's a lot of confusion circulating with Jay. One of the things I'm curious about is, well, what makes this so powerful? And I think one of the techniques that the author embarks on is rhetorical questions. And a rhetorical question forces the reader to think about what is occurring in the text. So here we have this moment where it says, "I don't know because I can't. Doesn't the truth itself matter?" Right? And so he's having this moment of, shouldn't I be able to know the truth? And by asking a question, the reader is transposed into that moment. And he continues to ask these difficult questions. How do you mourn someone you already let slip away? Are you even allowed to? So I'm thinking that these rhetorical questions make these passages much more complex and in-depth. The other thing that I think works well is that there's not this extreme explosion, but instead these quieter moments. And this might be a little bit like those moments that we talked about describing what the action is not. So describe the emotion by what it is not. So he says what he should be doing in these moments. I should be crying or throwing down my controller down in anguish, but I don't do any of this. So this idea of describing emotions, we may want to explore by showing what our emotion should be doing versus what is actually happening. He should be crying. He should be throwing a controller. He should be doing something more extreme, but he doesn't. He sits around and just asks questions. The other part I'm interested in here, and I don't necessarily know what this is called, but he has this moment right here. Instead, there's only a mild confusion, a muddy feeling of unreality that thickens when I consider the distance that had developed between Jun and me. And in one instance, right, this is a metaphor, and maybe an abstract or surprising metaphor, right, that this is what he should be doing, but instead there's a muddy feeling of unreality that thickens when he considers the distance that had developed between them. But there's something complex here. It could be the word thicken and how it relates to muddy, right? So kind of extending the metaphor beyond just muddy, but using another word that enhances that. It could be the combination of words, the muddy feeling of unreality, and the word unreality is not a word I've ever considered before. So it could be just very particular word choice. It may be the way that the sentence sounds. It may be this um, almost diphthong that happens in your mouth, literary uh, alliteration. So that hard TH sound with those M sounds creates movement in the mouth. So instead, there's only a mild confusion, a muddy feeling of unreality that thickens, right? And you have a little bit of assonance between the sound thickens and distance. And so there's this audio sound that's occurring in this moment that is so compact and so tight. So that is really complex and certainly not expected of you as a writer. But if you're starting to try to strive to become the next level writer, start thinking about your metaphors and how to extend them. Don't simply say something is muddy, but let it thicken. Think about how do words sound together. Think about your alliteration and your assonance and try to play with sounds. That's it for today's video. So as you work through your emotions vignette, it might be time to meet with me and see how your emotions are coming across. Thanks for watching.